Perfect. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever it is where you are. I'm back here and welcome back to the Think2Thrive Unplugged podcast. I, as always, am your host, Adrian. Tonight or today, whatever it is, wherever you are, I'm delighted to have with me Bronagh Davidson. Bronagh is the founder of My Pregnancy Journals and also in charge or a part of the Cash Flow Club in Ireland. Bronagh, it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Thank you very much for making the time. Maybe you might tell our listeners a little bit more about you than I just did.
Adrian, thank you so much. It is so lovely to be here. I'm really excited for this. My husband, Carl, was on your podcast previously, and we are big fans of yourself. And we know that you are an award-winning podcaster, so it's really great to be here. So as you said, my name is Bronagh. I'm based in Ireland, but currently I'm in Portugal because we are relocating here next year. So we're in our new house, which is very exciting. I'm mammy to two little girls, wife to Carl, as I mentioned before. And my two little girls are Bronagh. She just turned 3, and then Saoirse, who turned 1 in May. So I launched My Pregnancy Journals this year, February of this year, which has been really amazing. I've been kind of an entrepreneur my whole life, really. I've dabbled in multiple different types of businesses, most of them service-based. So to have like a physical product is really exciting and really new and completely different realm of business that I haven't really gone into before. And then you also mentioned the Cash Flow Club Ireland. So we launched that in 2017, 2018. That was actually my little brainchild as well. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to create a free Facebook group all about financial education and literacy and just trying to kind of get it out there as much as possible. We are not financial advisors, but we are just big advocates for everybody understanding money and the game of money. And speaking of games, we host Cash Flow Club board game events all across Ireland and Portugal and different places. So that's kind of me and what I do.
Wow. Yeah. You sound, it's really impressive, Bronagh, and you sound like a very, very busy lady.
Very busy.
You can imagine with 2 kids of that age and everything else that you're doing, how do you have time to do anything else?
I don't know. I've heard a story, a saying before. It's like, if you want something, don't give it to someone who's busy. And I really believe that's true. And because I know myself, even like if I don't have something on and there's something to do, I just put it on the long finger. Whereas if you have so much on, you just have to like power through and get it done. So that's just kind of like how I feel on getting things done between house renovations here in Portugal, the babies, the businesses, everything. It's a bit chaotic. Yeah.
But in a good way,
all good. All positive.
As you know, the concept behind the Think2Thrive podcast is to try and get people to believe, I like to say, to believe a little bit more in that if somebody else has done it, maybe I can do it too. And I suppose the whole premise is to share your story, your evolution from when you were Bronagh Og or Bronagh Beag, right up to now, so we can hopefully inspire some other people. With that in mind, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you grew up, your family, how many of them were you, and all those sort of good things.
Exciting. Yeah, cool. So I've always considered myself a nomad. I was born in the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin, just to go back to day dot. Lived in the north side, Dublin city centre, until I was 5. My mum was a Laois woman. We moved down to Laois then at that stage, and my dad stayed up in Dublin. He's always been a Liberties boy. So he moved back to his home house in Walkinstown. So I was always up and down to Dublin, from Laois and Dublin to Dublin for Laois, to Laois for Dublin, as it is. Went to university in Maynooth. So I studied psychology. I also did a bit of sociology and anthropology there. I always wanted to do either law or psychology. So I ended up with psychology. Probably should have gone into law, who knows, but both very interesting professions nonetheless. Growing up, so I was always a daddy's girl, but daddy lived in Dublin. He used to come down every weekend to see us. Had 2 brothers and a sister, an older brother with a different daddy. Cormac, so my half brother, so he was already moved out by the time and having babies by the time I came along. I have a niece who's 1 year younger than me, so we kind of grew up the same age. My mom was 40 when she had me, 55. My dad was 55. So they always were a bit older as well as I was growing up. So really interesting perspectives, just even in terms of like finances and money. My mom was a big spender. My dad was a lot more frugal. He would have grown up 1936. He was born. So kind of post World War II, rationing still a thing, on in your goods and all that sort of stuff. So mad kind of like experience. My mom and dad were the youngest of their families as well. So all my aunts and uncles were quite elderly, still are. So yeah, just like really interesting perspective on life. So I have another brother and then a younger sister as well. So my younger sister has a niece who's older than her. So family generational kind of sides of things are all a bit mental as well, because obviously my parents were a bit older having us, whereas their older siblings would have had kids at a normal age. So I have first cousins that would have been like now in their 70s and 80s. So yeah, really cool. Yeah, very unusual. My granddad, actually my dad's dad, was in the 1916 Rising and 1922 War of Independence on De Valera's side. I'll just put that out there. But so my dad's side of the family would be really into all of that. My mom would be a self-proclaimed communist. So on the other end of things, loving Russia and everything. So really, really kind of like mad belief systems as well growing up. And conversations. My mom's sisters, a few of them were nuns. One was a missionary in the Cameroons for over 40 years. So I had this like big thing about Africa my whole life growing up and everything as well. So just really kind of like mad, unusual, I think unusual childhood, but still very normal for me because it was my childhood. But yeah, money was always a bit sparse. My belief systems around money was always very negative. So that was such a huge inspiration for me in terms of the Cash Flow Club. And yeah, my mom was youngest of 11. So I always wanted to have a big family. I thought, you know, my family are very fertile. So I always just took it for granted that I would be able to have a big family. But I was always really ambitious as a child as well. So I wanted to go to university, which wasn't really a thing in my family. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to like be rich and famous. I wanted to do all these things. And then I wanted to have kids when I was in my 30s. I was like, in my head, I'm going to get married at 25 and do all of these things and have my kids in my 30s, because two of my brothers had kids quite young as well. And some of my friends had kids quite young. When I'm saying young, my brother Cormac, as I said, like he was 16 when his partner got pregnant with my niece. My brother Patrick, he was 17 when his 14-year-old girlfriend got pregnant. So like quite young. So I was like, in my 30s, I want to have kids, and that's exactly what happened. So I've traveled extensively. I've been very focused on finances and business and stuff, as I said. I got married at 25 and I had my kids in my 30s, but I did have kind of an experience when it came to fertility as well. I kind of brought the babies a bit earlier, but I'm really grateful that happened as well. And that really links into the pregnancy journal aspect of things and really kind of breaking the whole journey of pregnancy and everything like that. So I don't know, that's a very kind of like all over the place description of life, but open to any questions.
That was a lot. I think I remember a bit of it. Just so first of all, having the kids early, that's pretty cool in one way. And to be coming out through the other end. I always think I've got two girls as well. One is 13 and the other is 8. And the 13-year-old, you know, we left 5 years between the two of them, which is quite a lot, because we had just got it nice into a lovely rhythm. You know, everything was going to be all really lovely, and you know, we could leave Anna somewhere and we didn't need to worry that she was going to roll over or do something like that. You know, so and then it was a complete shock to the system, I tell you, to have number 2 come along, which is Emma. And yeah, it took a lot of getting used to, but now we're out the other end of that again. And then I suppose another 5 or 6 years, because I tell them they're being kicked out of the house at 18. That's it, gone. You know,
I was told that as well. Yeah, I was told 16, so you're being very generous for 18.
Yeah, well, that's when the what you call it, the children's allowance stops. So you said you traveled extensively, Bronagh. Tell us where have you been?
Yeah, I've been in 40 plus countries.
40.
I lived 40 plus. Yeah, I
Oh,
can't
wow.
remember the exact figure. But most of Europe. So I did a lot of Europe. There's a few places that I haven't been in Europe, but like if you named most places in Europe, I've been there. And we lived in China for a couple of years, and we used China as a springboard to visit lots of different places. So that side of the world, so Fiji, Samoa, a bit of Australia, Bali, Indonesia, Singapore a few times, Japan. We were in Japan for 7 weeks. Yeah, and just a little bit of the US. So the plan next year is I'd love to get like a camper van or an RV or whatever they're called and start up kind of like northeast of the US and just kind of like make our way just a zigzag up and down until we get to northwest, and then just drive across like Montana and just like do as much of the US as possible. I still have definitely a big bucket list. I never made it to Africa, not yet, even though it's a place I've always wanted to go. So Africa is definitely on the list. South America's on the list. Want to basically do a lot of that. I would love to go to Antarctica. I've been pricing up Antarctic cruises that also encompass like a lot of like South America, the southern part of South America. Yeah, a lot more to do, but I have done quite a bit already, which is great.
Yeah. That sounds like an amazing trip through the US. I was talking with my wife about maybe doing something similar but we were talking about going into Florida and just going straight across to the West Coast, to California, which I think would be pretty cool. Maybe we'll talk about that another time.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So what drives you to travel? What's the draw?
I think, as I said, like I'm self-proclaimed nomad. I feel like I've always just associated with like nomad has always must have been the word that came up for me as opposed to like adventurer or anything like that. Like I just feel like I always need to be moving and going to different places. And I just love culture. I love experiencing new things. Even the move to China, that was kind of like again a little brainchild that I had, that I was like, where would be the most culture shock of a place that you could possibly go to? And China came up. My preconceived ideas of what China was were completely wrong. I thought it was going to be like gray and smoggy and just full of people and concrete jungle and stuff. It's not like that at all. Like China's amazing. Love China. Would go back there in a heartbeat. But yeah, I think it's just, I really love to kind of like shock my system and just like do like wild outlandish things and just go crazy places. Like even we got married in Romania, people were like, oh, why Romania? And I'm like, well, I wanted to do destination, but I didn't want to do the normal kind of like Italy or Lanzarote or wherever people go. I was like, I want to go somewhere really crazy that like people would not normally go and get a thrill out of bringing like a load of people to this set place, which we did. So yeah, I don't know, I just like newness, I like difference, I like change, I like excitement. So
yeah, I personally, I love to travel too. I haven't visited China yet. It's on my list, as is Japan. When you think about somewhere that's completely different to the sort of culture that we're used to, say in Western Europe, etc., China and Japan probably completely different. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Something to ask you. So the Cash Club, for obviously I know what the Cash Club is and I know the history of it, but for our listeners who might not, let's explain to them a little bit about what the Cash Club is.
Yeah, so cash flow is a concept by someone called Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is what he's most well known for. So speaking of travel, I was in a travel club. It was a multi-level marketing company that's no longer with us, unfortunately, because it was actually amazing. It's the only time I've done MLM, but it was a travel club, and there was a lot of self-development in that. So there was kind of like different prongs. It was like travel, like 4 and 5 star travel. There was volunteering. There was a lot of self-development. And then there was the community aspect of it as well. So it was really good. But in the self-development seminars that I used to go to, I just became like a self-development junkie for a period of time. And they kept talking about like financial education and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and like kept talking about it. And again, my money mindset was just like blanking this out. As soon as they'd start talking about that, I'd be thinking about other stuff that we had discussed previous. Eventually I got to a stage where I was able to actually listen to what they were saying. I read the book, and it was nearly like every single sentence in the book was like a golden nugget that just made my mind explode. And it really opened up my mind and my life to like the other side of the coin, which is what Robert Kiyosaki calls it. He's a very controversial figure. People love him, people hate him. To me, I'm like, he just changed my life. So I'm forever going to be grateful to him for that. And the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he actually wrote that as a marketing tool for this game, this board game that he created. So he has the Cash Flow Club board game. There's Cash Flow 101, which is more foundational investing, so real estate, business. And then there's Cash Flow 202, which is more technical investing, so stocks and bonds, which I'm not personally interested in that. So I just focus on Cash Flow 101. And what we do, so all around the world, there's cash flow clubs. So if you could Google cash flow club and a country, and you'll find something for that. We have the largest one in Ireland. We obviously have like a big Facebook group, which I mentioned, but it's more than that. So we host events where people can come, play the board game, meet more people. It's a bit of networking. It's really interesting board game because it's a game, so you can play it whatever way you like because it's just a game. It's not real life, but also people get really challenged on their own money beliefs. You think you're playing against people on your table or with people on your table, but really you're just playing with yourself alongside other people, which is what life is really at the end of the day. And yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. We started off just hosting them in our house, and now we have 4 to 5 different board games going at a time. They're really cool. So we do actually have another game coming up on the 18th of October. It's going to be in Dublin. So would love to welcome anybody that's listening to the podcast to that. But yeah, because we're moving to Portugal next year, there's probably only going to be 1 or 2 more games in Ireland. So it's sad, but we're moving on to sunnier pastures.
On to bigger and better things, Bronagh. So the idea, I'm actually a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki. I have one of his books here, and I love the cash flow quadrant, and especially the bit about the employee, the self-employed, the business owner, and the investor. I think it's such a simplistic way to look at things. I think it's really, really cool. But I've also really enjoyed the game. So anybody who is listening who wants to find out more about, let's say, what their limiting beliefs are when it comes to money. I know as Irish people, I interview other people as well, but mostly Irish people, our limiting belief seems to be mostly that, money is scarce, doesn't grow on trees. Who do you think I am? Mr. Moneybags or whatever. And we think it's sort of drummed into us, I believe, from a very young age that money is bad. And money is not bad. Money is just a tool. Money allows you to have the freedom. It allows you to do the things that it is that you want to do. You have to, let's say, pay a mortgage or pay rent. As much as it would be lovely to pay that with hugs and I love yous, the bank don't take that. So you need money is essential, but it's also a game, earning money and finding out different ways to earn money, which is what the cash flow game is all about. Is fantastic. So I would really encourage anybody who's listening to come along to October the 18th, as you said, and Cash Flow Club Ireland it is, isn't it, Bronagh?
Cash Flow Club Ireland. Yeah, even if you just search it on Facebook, you'll come across the group. There's 3,000 members. I don't know exactly. But yeah, no, it's really good. And even belief systems, I think like a lot of us believe like all rich people are evil or are bad people or whatever. And like that's actually like, if you look at movies and stuff, like often the rich guy is the evil guy. And unattained, like it's always like this man in a suit, and it's actually wild. Like the more you go into it, the more you realize how we're brainwashed or programmed to believe certain things about money. It's very interesting. We've had a whole range of different people come play, from children. Like sometimes we have people bring their teenagers, they get a ticket for their teenagers so they can come, or we could have like property tycoons that have come to play from Ireland. We've had people that have worked in the AIB for years and said that they learned more in the couple of hours playing than they did in all their financial schooling that they did, like college and stuff like that, because it teaches you a different way of thinking about money. But Robert Kiyosaki, even if all you do is listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's for free on YouTube. Like, please do go listen to it or buy the book if you'd like a physical copy. He does have so many more books, like it's just never ending. Yeah, big fan of it.
There's a great one for parents as well to give to their kids. I got one for my girls, and it's the cartoon version of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah,
the comic book version. It's very, very good. It was so funny. She was 7 at the time when I was reading it to her going to bed at night. We'd read a page or two about it, and she was like giving out about tax. What is tax, Daddy? Well, I said, well, that's when the government takes your money. But why? Why do they take that? It's not fair. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's life.
Yeah. I think it's called Rich Kid, Smart Kid, I think.
Can't remember.
And I don't think it's even been printed anymore, but you can definitely get like secondhand copies of it on like eBay or whatever. But it's a really good book to get if you have children, for sure.
Yeah. And then there's a teenager version as well, which I'll need to get for my now teenager. Cool. Where were we? We're on the rat race is the name of the game, isn't it? Yeah.
It's called Cash Flow 101, but Escape the Rat Race. Yeah. And there's kind of 2 games within the game. So there's the rat race, which everyone starts on, and then there's the fast track, which is where you want to progress onto. The objective is to get your cash flow or your passive income to exceed your monthly expenses. And once you do that, then you're into the fast track. And it's really interesting, even the emotional journey that you see players go through from one game to the next. Like, it's just completely night and day. Almost the fast track is almost boring in comparison. Like, it's really interesting. It's a very, very good game. You can play it online for free as well. It's okay. I just personally, I prefer. I'm a very tangible person, hence the journal as well. Like, I like pen to paper. I'm kinesthetic. I'm tangible. So like for me, the board game is just much better. You literally get like a balance sheet and everything. So your pencil, rubber, pair, they're like writing down all your figures of like all the deals that you're doing or expenses that you have to pay and stuff. So it's a really good lesson, even just for like your own individual budgeting and finance taking and stuff. It's really good. It's definitely worth a couple of hours of your life, I believe.
And last thing on that one, on the 18th, what do you normally do? Is it the evening time or is it during the daytime that you do it normally?
Typically during the day. So like, let's just say it could be 10 to 4, for example. And then there might be a small little like bonus training at the end. So the ESBI quadrant that you were just talking about, Carl, will typically have like a flip chart, and he might do like a little session on ESBI. The one that we're doing on the 18th is actually in the Platinum Property HQ, which is run by Paul Green, who'd be really big into like property. We ran it there once before, and Paul actually did a whole presentation after the game as well, which was amazing. So he got up and basically talked through a case study of like running a bit like acquiring a property and doing it up and finding a good deal and stuff like that. So that may or may not happen again this time. I presume it will, but there's always like some kind of like session or something after the game as well. But it's basically you come in, you play the game. Like, it's, some people are like, oh, I didn't think we were actually going to be playing a game. I'm like, no, it's a board game that we're all sitting down and we're playing. We'll have a lunch and then we'll sit down, we'll play the game again until we don't play it anymore. So that's basically like everyone just going in pencil to paper, pencil, because you will be doing lots of rubbing out and changing what you've got on your piece of paper. But it's really cool. It's really like, everybody loves it. Like, I haven't had anyone come and say like, oh, I hated that, or it's such a waste of time. Like, everyone's got something from it. And what we will always do, which is really interesting, unless it's like a parent and a child, if 2 people come together, we split them up, because it's so interesting. We didn't do that at the beginning. And like money beliefs and stuff, like you'd be having arguments happening at a table, like 2 friends like fighting with each other, or husband and wife and stuff like that. So we just separate people to let them just like play their own game. It's safer.
That's a good idea. Nobody needs doesn't need to be fisticuffs or domestics at the table.
No, we're going to have one here.
Yeah. Cool. You're obviously a very entrepreneurial person, and I'm always super curious as to where that comes from. And generally speaking, there's a story. Normally, there's a reason why. And it'd be interesting to know, because you've also had traditional jobs, let's say, as well as being an entrepreneur, as most of us do, I suppose, when the bills need to be paid. But what has driven you to go from the employee space into the self-employed space?
It's a good. I think at the very beginning, so before reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and all the rest, I still was an entrepreneur. I just didn't think that I was. Like in my head, a business person was a man in a suit, and that was another life or another world that just wasn't my world. So I didn't think about it too much. But having said that, I was still a self-employed personal trainer at one point. I worked in a gym and, you know, had my own clients and stuff. But in my head, I wouldn't have been thinking I'm a business person. So after that, I started working in a cybersecurity company. I was the first employee that was hired. So I was the right-hand person for the CEO. And I learned a lot there about corporate business. A lot of like flying out to London for the day to have like meetings with like cybersecurity companies and all this sort of stuff, and hosting corporate events. I just did a bit of everything, like on the phone to banks, kind of trying to placate them when something wasn't working for them. Like, so really, really interesting insight into corporate world. That was around the same time I joined that travel club MLM. So I learned a lot about business there. But again, I still wasn't at the point where I thought that I was a business person, even though I was like growing a team of entrepreneurs and, you know, making passive income and everything. It still hadn't clicked with me at that stage that that's what I was doing. So there's been multiple times throughout my journey that I've like dipped my toes into business and had been doing business before I even identified that that's what I was doing. So I think for myself, it's just something that's innately within me. Like I get an idea and I just go with it without really thinking about it too much. And I'd imagine that's what it is for like a lot of entrepreneurs. I think like if you have that in you, that you're an idea person, or you're a get things done kind of person, or whatever that is for you, like even if it's you just want to help people and share stuff, so you become a yoga instructor or whatever it is, like it's just something that's like an urge within you that you can't really suppress. And if you do try to suppress, then I just don't think you'll be very happy, because you're kind of suppressing a part of who you are. So that's what I'd say for me, like without even realizing I was doing it, I was constantly doing it. I was constantly trying to like find ways to make money, or like to work really hard. I've always been someone, like even from the age of like 14, 15, I had 2 jobs while I was doing my junior cert in school, and while I was paying for my own after school study. I paid for my own admission to French college, which is kind of like a Gaeltacht, which is like a 3-week French school in Ireland. But I paid for that myself, like, you know, and everyone else there was all like private school, really preppy, didn't even want to be there because it was paid for them and done for them, whereas I had worked to get myself there. So I don't know, I've just always been that person that just wanted to do things and make it happen, and I just find a way to make it happen, which I think is a big aspect of people that are entrepreneurial. They're always just looking for, how can I do something, as opposed to I can't do that, you know?
Yeah, what role, let's say, for you, because it seems to be something that's not natural, let's say, within you, Bronagh, but if you were to look at somebody else who maybe it's not naturally within them, what role for you would the likes of mindset play? Or for you, I think you have a natural entrepreneurial mindset of that, you know, I'm just gonna make it happen. Yeah. What sort of role does mindset play for you in entrepreneurial activities?
It's absolutely everything. Like it's everything. Like you need to know, you know, what it is that you want to do. And if you don't even know what that is, it's going to be very hard. Like this is all mindset. Like it's who you surround yourself with, like their kind of belief systems and stuff as well. That's all mindset, because that all comes down on you. Like if you have an idea to do something, whether it's to run a retreat or to do whatever it is that you want to do, and there's people around you that like mock people that do that, that's just going to suppress you, because you're going to have a belief system of like, this isn't a good thing to do, or it's never going to work, or like my people aren't going to accept me. Like I just feel like I'm a big believer in like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And protection and security is down at the very lowest rung, as is like your biological like needs and stuff. And I think being accepted in your community, I think community is maybe the third one up, like, or belonging. Like we really need to feel like we belong and stuff. So who you surround yourself with is so important, because their mindset is going to rub off on you. But also just like all of the different seminars that I attended after joining the MLM and stuff like that, and getting really into self-development, my mindset just absolutely exploded, like completely changed. After all of that, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have read Rich Dad Poor Dad. My mindset about finances wouldn't have changed. I learned a lot about myself. I became a lot more confident in myself. I always had like really low self-esteem. And I would have like had a lot of kind of like mental issues when I was like in my teenage years, like depression and stuff like that. So to be able to come out of all of that and to get onto the other side of it, a lot of dependency and stuff like that, like it's just so important to be able to like know who you are, surround yourself with good people, inject positive information into you, like wash your brain with like positive information, whether that's audiobooks, podcasts like this one, attending seminars, who you surround yourself with, trying to get out there and meet new people, try to like literally touch grass, like just go outside, get out of a screen for a few minutes and just go and socialize with people and meet people. I just think it's so important. Like everyone is just stuck into screens now, and it's just the norm. Like I think even since the pandemic, like everything is a Zoom, everything is a Google Meet. Everything is, I'm just going to like watch that when I wanted, like streaming and everything. It's all microwave mindset, really. So just to be able to like break away from all of that, I just think it is absolutely key, you know. And just awareness. I remember I used to do a lot of like counseling and stuff, and the main thing that I really took away from was like awareness is key. Like just being aware of things, like question things, you know, find out like why do I react a certain way when this thing happens? Why does that person believe what they believe? Like question your beliefs as well. Like growing up, as I said, like my mom was a big commie, like my dad came from big Republican background. Like my belief system, things were like all over the place, whereas I really had to like question my beliefs and say, I actually believe that, or is it just because I was taught to believe a certain thing? And then I could decide, no, I want to continue to believe that way, or actually I don't really agree with that, I'm going to go believe something else. I think that's something that most people don't do, is like question why they think the way that they do. And that's like such a huge, I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but I'm just like spitballing lots of things about my
No, it's great, Bronagh. It's fantastic. And such good advice for the listeners. I mean, everything that you're saying is just absolutely spot on. The comment that, or the one thing I would say is you hit the nail on the head. Most people don't think. Yeah. My mentor Bob Proctor used to always say, you know, thinking is we're the highest form of creation, and thinking is the highest form of anything that we're able to do. But yet, no, most people don't think. In fact, 2% of people think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think. You know, mental activity is not thinking. Thinking is when you're actually questioning your beliefs, like you said. Yeah. And not everybody gets to that point in order to question. Most people, unfortunately, they die in their 20s, but they don't actually die until they're 60, 70, 80 or whatever. I mean, the passion goes out of an awful lot of people, and it's so sad. It's part of the reason why my tagline on everything is understanding is the key to success. If you want to change something, or even if you don't know that you want to change something, understanding is the first step. Yeah. If you understand how the mind works, you understand how an engine works, you understand how the coffee machine works, you're able to fix it. Yeah. So once you have that level of understanding, you don't need to understand everything, but a certain level.
And that goes back to awareness is key. So it's the same premise of like what really stuck with me was awareness. So awareness, understanding why, you're having the awareness of like why X is Y or whatever. And also just what you were saying there's another really good audio that's free on YouTube. I think it's Earl Nightingale, The Greatest Secret. I think that's what it's called. But I can send you the link to add to the description. I'll add the Rich Dad Poor Dad that one as well. But it's really short, I think like 30 minutes. But he talks about, you know, all these ambitious people in their 20s, exactly what you were saying, and how that just kind of like erodes over time. It's really, really powerful.
The story is he takes an example of a group of 100 men, is what he says, but say 100 people in their 20s, and by the time that they reach their 60s, you know, only 2 of them or 3 of them will be rich, 5 of them will be financially secure, but the vast majority of them will have not learned from the time they're in their 20s until they're 60 on how to manage money. And that's why I think somebody like Robert Kiyosaki, the Cash Flow Club, all those sort of things are vital, you know, and let's forget about the stuff that was been drilled into us as a kid, is that money is evil and rich people are evil, etc. And we concentrate on, you know, achieving Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The very top of it for me is the self-actualization, becoming all that you can become. Should be the goal, I think, for an awful lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And what was really interesting, what you said earlier, you said 95% of people would rather die than think. Like, I think that's such like a stark, like, data point, you know. It's like a really interesting point to bring up. And like a lot of that, I think, again, comes back to not wanting to be rejected by our peers, because back in the day when we were tribal people, if you were rejected out of the tribe, that was death. You know, you weren't going to survive outside of that. And I just really feel like our primal reptilian brain is still in there being like, I need to be accepted. And that's why so many people conform so much. Yeah, like there's like even so many experiments about like people conforming, and it's just so interesting. People just do random things just because they see other people doing them, and it's sad. And like all these like marketing companies and stuff, they're well aware of that, you know. We're very susceptible to like any kind of agenda that people want to push, which is where awareness has to come into it as well, and really question things.
Yeah, question. There's it's funny you say that, the tribal piece, right? So there's, let's say, 50,000 years of evolution has brought us to where we are now. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that's hardwired into our DNA. You know, there's beliefs, believe it or not, there's beliefs, there's everything that has been hardwired into our DNA, generation. At the risk of because the last woman I shared this book with, she wasn't very happy with me. It's called Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. Alan and Barbara Peace. It's a phenomenal book, really, that goes into the differences. And it's not that one is better and the other is worse, but just the differences. And we tend to get into the sort of polar, I'm better or you're better, whatever. We're different. Yeah. It's okay to be different. Yeah. But it's phenomenal.
Men are from Mars and Women Are from Venus. Another very good book.
Correct. Yeah. Speaking of books, I think it's time to mention yours, Bronagh. So the pregnancy journal. It sounds amazing. I've seen it in the flesh. We'll put a link into the comments so everybody can follow it and find it. Tell us about it. Tell me, how did the idea come about, first of all? Why? And tell us about it.
I think it's an amalgamation of lots of different things. As I said, I'm a very tangible person anyway. I was always the little person, like going through all my mommy's photos and putting them into albums and kind of archiving things. So I've always kind of had that in me anyway. Then I mentioned that I had a bit of a fertility blip. So during the pandemic, we had been living in China. We came back to Ireland. We didn't know how long it would be going on for, that we had to put our travels on pause. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go get my eggs frozen so that I can have all my million babies at a later point. Went in to do that and realized how naive I was. Not only was my egg follicle count very low, I only had 8. Which isn't a lot. You need about 15 to 20 to make one baby, which I was not aware of. I was like, oh, I'll just get loads of eggs taken out and they'll all become babies at a later point. That's not the case. My hormone levels were very low, and you know, there was a possibility, I was told by a fertility consultant, that I might be premenopausal and might not be able to have babies, which was a huge thing for me. My whole identity growing up was one day I'll be a mother. So I used to smoke heavily. Like, I quit with the idea of one day I'll be a mother. I remember being 7 years old, force feeding myself broccoli, because I'm thinking one day I'll have to like feed my kids vegetables, so I better just get into it now. 7 years of age. And a lot of things that I did, like went to university, as I said, wanted to drop out my first year, and it's like, no, do you know what, I'm not going to be a statistic. I want my kids to be able to go to university. I'm going to stay in. And I graduated. I remember thinking that on my graduation day, I did it. So when I was told that there's a chance that I'm not going to be able to have kids at all, I freaked out, had a total identity crisis. 2021, my husband's the other side of the world working. I couldn't go, borders were closed, and I'm there going through this identity crisis with him on a completely different time zone to me. It was a bit crazy. So yeah, it was basically a thing of like, look, don't delay it. If you can, try to get pregnant now or do IVF now. Thankfully, we conceived naturally on Bronagh, which was amazing. And I was gifted a pregnancy journal from a very good friend of mine. So I thought it was brilliant, thought nothing of it. Did the journal, did a 1 year journal after that. And thankfully we conceived when she was 1 year old. So we had our second baby just under the 2 year mark of Bronagh coming along. And I didn't have a journal for her. I thought I had another pregnancy journal. I didn't. I was like, look, it'll be grand. There's loads of journals out there. There's like retail kind of like baby events and stuff. It'll be fine. There's going to be loads. Every retail store that I went into, I couldn't find one. And then when I went online, it seemed like there was a lot of them, but when I would click on them, it's like, oh, we don't deliver to your location, or, oh, we're out of stock, or product unavailable. So what was actually available, there was very little. Time was ticking on, and I got serious FOMO, and I was like, I need to start recording this. So I ordered a journal. It was not fit for purpose. The prompts were awful. The size was awful. It was just terrible. And I was like, you know what, I'll just use this for the time being until I find a better one, and then I'll transcribe everything over. That never happened. I ended up just making that journal into like a scrapbook, crossing out the prompts, making my own kind of like letters to Saoirse, who ended up coming along, plastering loads of photos everywhere to fill what they had in the journal, and just kind of making my own pregnancy scrapbook, really. And then when Saoirse was 2 months old, so July of last year, 2024, I just had the idea of, I'm never going through that again. If and when I get pregnant, with please God I do, again, I'm just going to create my own journal in the way that I wish that both of their journals were. So everything that I'd want in it. So loads of space for photographs, bump photo space, being able to add in like what the birth story of the baby was after the fact. Just everything, all the good things I could take from both of their journals, and then everything else that I wish that theirs had. I just decided to make it for myself, purely for myself. And then I was thinking, look, I found it so difficult to find a journal, first of all. And then when I did find, the quality was just awful. I was like, there must be other mothers like me who would love to have a quality keepsake that they can then pass on to their kids, and their kids might show it to their kids when they're having them. So it's generational, which is wild to think. The baby's not even born yet. And in my brain, I'm like, oh, your grandchildren might be looking at this. And it's like really, really built to last. You've seen it. It's like greater than A4 size, gorgeous, like spiral bound, like hardcover. Like, I just love it. Like the way I've designed it as well. When it's bare, it looks like overkill, but there's so much space for photographs. But if you imagine, once it's complete, it's like a photo album. Like, even if you wrote nothing in the journal, it's basically a photo album. So it's something that you can share with your friends and family after the baby comes. So nice for your baby before they can read. They can be flicking through and seeing everything mommy and daddy was up to, or mommy, daddy, and older siblings was up to before they came along. And then as they get older, they can start like reading the different passages and stuff that you've been putting in. It's just, I absolutely adore it. And I would just love every mother to have one, really, because I just think it's so special. It's gorgeous.
Well, they look amazing, and I must say, built to last as well, as you say. So something that will certainly, take the rigors of time, and little sticky fingers going through the pages, etc., all those sort of things. So yeah, no, it's a credit to you. I really like it. And as I say, we'll share the details of it within the comments or within the description, so that everybody else can have a look at it too. So I suppose the question is, people can get it in bookstores or just online, or like if somebody was interested, how could they get one?
So I have my own website, so you can definitely get it there, which is just mypregnancyjournals.com. So you can definitely just book it there. But I also have it in a couple of bookstores or a couple of shops. They're not even all bookstores, but that is my goal between now and when I move to Portugal, to just visit as many, especially independent bookstores, as possible and get it in there. So even if you've never heard of us before, you can stumble upon it and find it. Sorry, I just need to get some water. But what we've also been doing is doing a lot of like trade shows and events. So I think you've seen it, Adrian, at like kind of like a business seminar. I've been trying to go to as many like mums and business events, or the pregnancy and baby fair that happens in the RDS. It's like the biggest event. We actually launched there April of this year. We're back there again in October. So we're just trying to go to as many events as possible. We just dipped our toe into agricultural events, which sounds wild, but this really is like a gift product. So it's not so much like a pregnant woman will go purchase it. Like, that's me, but that's not really like where we're going for. It's more the mom or the dad of the son or the daughter who's pregnant, or the friend or the sister wants to get it for their friend or sister, that kind of way. It's everyone knows someone who's pregnant. So we've been going to some agricultural trade shows and stuff as well. So we try to pop up as much as we can, as often as we can. But in the meantime, we're trying to get into as many bookstores as possible, or gift shops, or just community hubs. We're also associated with the Doula Association of Ireland. So any doula that's in that association will have like a discount code for the journal. And we also accept all for one gift cards. So if you have an all for one gift card that you don't know what to do with it, you can spend it on my online store.
Excellent. When you say farming, are you going to the ploughing championships?
No, only because I didn't get in there in time. But I did do the Tullamore show a week or so
only
ago.
last week or the week before, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really recent, the beginning of the month. Actually, literally the day before we came here, I think. It was a bit manic. And then to Portugal, and then we come home this Thursday, and on Saturday is the Ivork show, which is down in Pilltown in Kilkenny. So we're going to be there. Again, a massive show. So yeah, we're just trying to do as many as possible, but not the ploughing this year, but maybe next year. I'm trying to see like what shows are really good, so that from Portugal, if it's worth it, I can fly back and attend,
And is it something that's translatable into other languages, perhaps, as time goes on?
Yeah, it's something I'm thinking of, even for here in Portugal. Getting maybe a Portuguese version. I was speaking to someone there the other day who's from Argentina. She's writing a book completely unrelated to this, but she's going to be doing it in Spanish, which is her first language. And she was even talking about like how huge of a language Spanish is, because obviously you've got Spain, you've got South America, you've got all across the US. It's just everywhere, Mexico and stuff. So it's obviously Brazil for Portuguese as well. It's a slightly different language, but it's basically the same. So yeah, it is something I'm thinking of, but at the moment it's in English. But it doesn't even matter, because even if you spoke a different language, you could just like still follow the prompts and just write in your own language, or whatever language your baby is going to understand as they get older.
Oh, that's cool. It's really, really cool. And it's a credit to you. Congratulations on the success that you've had, and wish you more and more and more success with it, because I really like it. I think it's great.
Thanks, Adrian.
Cool. Where were we? So we've about let's say life as a mammy of two, and as super busy as that is, and 3 and 1, isn't it? You said
3 and 1, yeah.
2 girls, yeah. So you obviously grew up with I would say I call them the typical Irish preconceptions and pre-programming or paradigms when it comes to money. how would you prevent that going on to the next generation? Obviously, you've managed to change your mindset. So how are you going to instill that in the next generation?
One thing that I'm adamant to do is, like, if we do anything, the girls come along. So if it's a casual board game, they'll be there. If I have a trade show, they're there. Like, it's messy and it's busy and it can be stressful, especially a 2-year-old could be having a tantrum. 1-year-old is running in one direction, 3-year-old's going in the other. It's been crazy, but like, it's called Mammy's Shop, or we call the casual games Daddy's Shop or whatever. And, you know, I just think that is such a cool thing that they get to experience. My little girl, Bronagh, like, I give her, if we're at like like the RDS or like the agricultural shows, we have a little basket with chocolates in it. Like, that's her job, to be handing out the chocolates to different people and stuff. So it's kind of, you know, involving them in what we're doing as well. Carl, my husband, is really big into silver, as am I. I'm a silver bug, but he's really into collectible coins and different things. So like, our 2-year-old and our 1-year-old go around with literal silver coins and be like, oh, this is real money, you know. So it's just kind of exposure as much as possible, and just really like how we communicate. Because like, sometimes your belief systems, they're default and they can come out in your language without you even realizing it's all neuro-linguistic programming. And like, you can speak something and it is a reflection of your mindset, but you don't even realize it at the time. So, and if that's your default growing up, I do believe like it's there. Like, no matter how much work you do on top of it, it can slip through the cracks, you know, if you're unaware. So like, we have to be mindful of like how we communicate about money or how we communicate about experiences. And it's just trying to expose them to as much as possible, so that their belief system or their starting point is like, if we started off at like 0, they're starting off at 50, for example, in the hopes that then when they have kids, they're starting off at 100 or whatever it is. Going to multiply out. But even our home here in Portugal, like, we've got like a mini orchard. We're going to be growing even more like fruit and veg. We're going to have chickens, like, which is really, really like going back to basics, but it's also like so much freedom and like richness just in nature. Do you know, that kind of way? Like, which I just think is so important as well. Like, and just, again, Maslow's hierarchy needs, making sure that they have everything they need physiologically, making sure they feel secure, making sure that they feel loved, making sure that they have everything that they need so that they can then go into the self-actualization. And that will just be a norm for them. That's their default, you know. Yeah, it might slip down at certain points, but if they can feel like that's their kind of norm and they feel like loved and accepted and confident and secure, which is the most important thing, then it's the sky's the limit for them. So that's like what I'm really, really focused on, is exposure and just helping them feel loved and secure and happy.
Awesome. That's a great plan. And you're right. I said it before, understanding is the key to success. It's in everything. So building that understanding in your kids when they're young, so that they have a different paradigm in their mind, a different programming, and then they're going to have different results. I mean, it just goes without saying. There's a Bob used to say quite often, there's a reason why people are on welfare, and people are on, you know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation welfare, is because they've learned about what they've learned about money comes from their peers, comes from their parents and the people that they're surrounded with. That's another great point you made earlier about choosing who you're surrounded with. I always say that, you know, if the people, you're not happy with the people that you're surrounded with, well then, and you can't exclude them altogether from your life, well then don't go as often and don't stay as long. Yeah. So you can limit the damage, or put your armor on before you go, so that you protect your thoughts and you protect yourself. But yeah, it's one of those things, because I have the same thing with my kids. I'm trying to elevate their understanding and elevate their belief in insofar as money. I mean, when you think about it, what was one of the things that we were always taught as kids in Ireland is that your house is your biggest asset. Yeah,
I think that's worldwide, isn't it?
Well, particularly in Ireland, it's funny because having lived in other countries, they don't think about having a house at all. They're happy to rent. Yeah,
that's true. Actually, yeah, we're very territorial about our home. We have a whole film called The Field. If you haven't heard of it or seen it, you should watch it.
Yeah, exactly, and that exemplifies the sort of mentality. Is we want to have our piece of land, because I suppose it's been taken away from us, etc., for years. We want to have our piece of land, and it's built into us that it's ours.
My Republican roots will come out now, Adrian. Be careful.
We won't go into it too much, but if you think about the psychology behind it, that's really it. Is that we want to have our piece of land. But if you step back and you think about it, I mean, this was the bit that blew me away from Rich Dad Poor Dad, is that your house is not an asset. And the simple definition of an asset is anything that puts money into your pocket, and a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. I mean, it's so simple, but it's not what we were taught. And I suppose it's about trying to educate and get people to understand those tiny little things, because it's only small changes that need to be made in order to change.
And that's where a lot of, like, when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, as I said, like nearly every sentence in the book, and I'm being honest about this, was like a golden nugget. Like, my mind was blowing, because it's such, the way he writes the book, he writes it as him as a child learning from his rich dad, which is his friend's father. And he poses questions as he positions himself as like the idiot that doesn't know anything. He's like 10 years old or whatever, and his rich dad knows everything. And like, he's like, oh, but like, I thought it was this. And the rich dad says, no, it's actually that, or whatever. But it's really good because it guides the reader along that might have might be starting from net zero as well, guiding the reader along and being like, oh yeah, I was thinking that as well, and this is why the answer. So it's really disarming, and I just think it's such a clever way of like teaching these money principles, because it disarms your brain to allow the information to flow in. And it's such a good read, like, you know. And even that, in terms of like, your home is not an asset unless it's making you money. 100%. The house that we have here in Portugal, we've just like almost completed a renovation, but typical of like houses in this area or in Spain, it's like a 2-story building, but the house is on the top floor and the bottom floor is all basement. We've converted half of downstairs into a 2-bed apartment, which we will then be able to rent out. So this home will become an asset over time once we are renting out downstairs and we're making money from it, which will exceed the expense that we have on the home. So this will be an asset, but that's because we understood that. So we were able to like preemptively create it into an asset as opposed to a liability, you know. But we wouldn't have known that if we didn't study. And like, by study, I mean read books and listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
But the decisions that we're making now are completely like formed on the years and years and years and years of brainwashing, as in like washing out all the garbage that we had learned growing up, and like relearning new information, you know, that's really going to benefit us. And now we've got a gorgeous home here with a gorgeous family, like 2 gorgeous little girls, and it's really exciting. It's an exciting way to live. But like, this would not have been the path that I would have gone down if I hadn't put the work in.
Yes. Yeah. There's what is it? There's you mentioned The Greatest Secret earlier on, and I love that. In fact, I did one episode of the podcast where I just read an excerpt from that book, because I think it's amazing. I think Earl Nightingale had probably one of the most amazing voices to listen to ever. He was fantastic. But that book is great. I love it. And you're right. When it comes to study, we're not talking about sitting down for 10 hours a day and studying. You know, it's just about utilizing your time. We all have the same amount of time, 24 hours a day, whatever that is a week, 140 something, 168 hours a week. But it's about how you use that. And I used to commute from here to Dublin Airport every day. And before I woke up, let's say, because I like to use it like that, because most people are asleep at the wheel. Before I woke up, I was listening to music, you know, just bopping along in the car, and afterwards, I was using that time to listen to podcasts, to listen to audio books, all that sort of stuff, in order to change the knowledge or increase the knowledge that I had. And that's all it takes for people, you know. Take the information that you get, accept it, put it into practice, and you end up like you have, with a beautiful life in Portugal.
Yeah. And I think something I learned, and I don't know if it was a Robert Kiyosaki thing. Sometimes all the information just merges when you've been like consuming it for so many years. I don't know if it was a speaker at a seminar or it was Robert Kiyosaki, but one of them said there's content and there's context. And it's not about increasing your content, which is what you do when you become academically smart. Like you just learn lots of facts and figures and you're able to spout them off and do all this. It's your context. So you could go to a seminar and you could go to university, for example. I've done both. And in university or school, it's like, okay, well, what did you learn? Or if you read a book, what did you learn? That's the content. And you're like, well, I learned X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. Here's the formula. Or your context could be, you could go to a seminar or you could listen to an audio or something and someone could say, what did you learn? Like, I have no idea, but my mind is blown. That's your context is after changing. So like the way you perceive the world and see the world has changed, or how you perceive yourself or whatever it is, that's changed. And you'll never look at things the way that you did the same before, like again. And I just think that that's been such a pivotal thing for me, because I'm not here trying to know absolutely like everything about quantum physics and all the things. Like, no, I just want to be able to like see the world in a simple way, a fun way. It's not about like, oh, I'm going to be so boring or my life's going to be so busy, like driving in my car and listening to all these audios and stuff, and it's just going to be like so heavy. No, it's stuff that you enjoy doing. Like you get so much joy from it. And you could be listening to a book and like maybe you get caught on one thing that they say and then you are thinking about that and you zone out of what's next, what comes up next in the book. Yeah. It doesn't matter, because that one little nugget could completely change the way you see things or how you do things going forward. And that's really exciting. Like that's fun and exciting, and it's just everything gets better from that, you know. So it's a cool way to live. It's not heavy or anything like that. It's actually it's really exciting.
Well, it's living, isn't it? More so than existing. Yeah. And love it. Listen, Bronagh, I honest to God, I could sit here and talk to you all evening, you know that. But I think I'm conscious of time, and I know that you have 2 little ones and a husband who's probably peeking in going, where is she? Is she almost done?
You know what? I'll tell you what, right? I'm standing in kind of like kitchen, living room area. I have it propped up on a breakfast counter. And I have my balcony with my new French doors here, and literally across the road is a playground, and I can see the 3 of them off having the time of their lives going up and down the slide. So that's what they're doing right now. Yeah.
Happy days. So before we finish up, we've touched on a good few books actually. It's normally one of the questions that I ask at the end is do you have any book recommendations for the listeners, and it's twofold. One, for me to grow my own personal library because I love reading books, but also for the listeners. Do you have anything that you would recommend?
Something I recommend that I haven't mentioned yet. Do you know what? I don't have a specific thing that I can think of off the top of my list, but I'll just tell you what I've been doing this year, which is new for me. So I've listened to a lot of like nonfiction books, as in listened. I'm a big like book in hand kind of person, but I've listened to a lot of like business or self-development books. And last year I started listening to fiction books, which was completely new for me, and I really enjoyed it, and especially like historical fiction, which has been really interesting. But what I've been doing this year is I've been listening to biographies and autobiographies, and that's something that I would recommend yourself or anybody start doing. I'm currently listening to Protecting Whitney by David Roberts. He was the bodyguard of Whitney Houston, and it's so interesting just to get different, again, this is context expanding, because you're getting different behind the scenes of different scenarios. So like him, it's obviously, I'm thinking about like when I attend a concert, I now have more insight into like what goes on behind the scenes and security and stuff, and also learning about Whitney Houston and her life. Previous to that, I was listening to David Jason, who played Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses. Great biography. Some wild cards that have been really good. It's like Boris Johnson, J.D. Vance. He wrote a book, Hillbilly Elegy, which is like, he wasn't even in politics at the time when he wrote about it, but he's from like Kentucky in a real hillbilly family, and that was wild. Michelle Obama is becoming, like, some really, really good books, some really bad books as well, but it's still interesting. Graham Norton's biography would not recommend, but yeah, I think that that's actually a really cool thing, because like you could just learn. I've listened to Mud, Sweat and Tears, Bear Grylls, like mad, like eclectic range of books there, but like definitely like a fun way to kind of like listen and and learn about different types of worlds that are out there, because we're all living a different world on this world. It's like, it's wild. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Ideas.
No, that's fantastic. And then finally, before we finish up, if you could speak directly to a listener who's sitting there thinking, should I do it? Can I do it? What piece of advice would you give to them?
What I would say is, if you're thinking of like entrepreneurialism or business, I think the stat is like 9 out of 10 businesses fail. So like, you may as well just try it, because like, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out. Like, it's statistically not going to work out, but you may as well just do it. Like, I think we're so fearful of failure, whereas I think it's Robert Kiyosaki who says it, but they say fail forward. Like, just embrace the failure. I think we're so programmed from school to like fear again, rejection, being mocked and ridiculed, of doing something wrong. Like, we're always taught that we have to be perfect and everything. That's just not the case. Like, done is better than perfect. And that's something that I've really had to learn, because I am a Virgo, I'm a perfectionist, and I got to the stage now where it's just a case of like, done is better than perfect. And that's just so important, I think, to be able to give yourself some relief, and to give yourself some compassion, and just to partner with yourself and just be like, you know what, it's probably not going to work out, but I'm just going to try it anyway. And I think it's Jim Carrey did a brilliant speech for like college graduates or something, but he basically, everything I just said, he says it much better. But I would definitely recommend it. If you are thinking of doing it, search out Jim Carrey's speech to a college and listen to that, and just believe in yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bronagh, very much. They're great words to end on, and I second that completely. And I love that. Done is better than perfect. I think that could be a quote that to use. Done is better than perfect. I love it.
It's the title of the podcast. Done is better than perfect.
But thank you very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening. I'm sure that our listeners will get a lot out of it. Have a great day. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for putting this together and being the conduit of all these conversations as well. It's so important. So thank you.
A pleasure. Thanks a million.